Take two. Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Here to do another Tiermaker list for Genesis studio albums. I'm just going to kind of lightning round this a bit too. So from Genesis to Revelation, I own it. I've listened to it only a few times. From the sour turns to sweet, and it's got a couple other fun, nice psych pop songs. But as a whole, it's clearly the record I've listened to the least. And anyway. Trespass, love this record. I put this in A tier. Stagnation is a favorite of mine. I love the knife. White Mountain. I love the pastoral Victorian element. Very cinematic, story oriented on this record. Anthony Phillips was awesome on this album, even though it's more folky. Gets heavy at points, of course, on the knife. Nursery Crime, also A tier. Even though I think this is frequently mentioned as a favorite. It's got the musical box. It's got Fontanelle Still Matches. It's got Return of the Giant Hogweed. It's got a bunch of other tracks that people love. Of course, it introduced Hackett and Collins to the band. The Fables, of course, you think of, the girl with the crow. Musical box, of course, the Fable, the stories. I think of the Peter Gabriel Genesis, starting from this album through the end of as being a bunch of fables in music, basically. Foxtrot, S tier. It's whatever S is supposed to refer to. A, it's supposed to be like an A plus or a perfect record. Supper's Ready. I get goosebumps. Certain sections, the Wolf Farm included. Can You Tell Close Coastliners. Watcher of the Skies, of course. Horizons. It's a terrific record. I love Foxtrot. The artwork from the artwork included. I think Supper's Ready lives up to its hype. I mean, it just does. Anyway, Selling England by the Pound. I believe Get 'Em Out on Fridays on Foxtrot, but Selling England by the Pound, I go back and forth with. It has probably my favorite Genesis song with the Cinema Show. The unison section at the end is just, I get goosebumps every time. Firth the Fifth, the guitar solo from Hackett, which is maybe his greatest thing he ever did. It sounds a little bit like David Gilmour to me frequently. What else? Dance on the Moonlit Night. Dance of the Moonlit Night, I believe it is. And Battle of Epping Forest, which I find to be an experiment that really worked. It's a little Beatlesy at times. It's a lot of people think it's like a word salad, but Gabriel's trying to cram so many words into a short amount of time. But kind of like when I talk fast like this on these videos. But I actually really love. I didn't like it at first. Battle of Epping Forest is a song that I grew to really love. So anyway, Lamb Lies Down Broadway. I put in the A. It's a double album, of course, 100 minutes. It syncs up with Dark City from 1998, which more people don't know about, but wish they did. Because a lot of weird things happen, kind of like The Wizard of Oz and Dark Side of the Moon. But Kevin Gilbert's, of course, doing it helped me appreciate it more. It's the first Genesis album I heard. Back in New York City, In the Cage, the Lamia, riding the Scree. There's just a lot, just a ton of fantastic moments. But why I don't put it as an S tier, a perfect or whatever, is because it has so much. It just kind of, as a listening experience, some parts go on a little longer than I'd prefer at points. So I mean, it's on the cusp. I mean, I appreciate it. It's hugely ambitious. It's the most original album they did. They never did anything like it before or after. But anyway, The Lamb as an A tier. Trick of the Tail, and I did this before. I put it as an A. I guess I still have to, just because it has so many songs that I recognize and know, even though it was the album that followed after Gabriel left. And Tangled, Squonk, Los Endos, Dance on a Volcano. Yeah, it's filled with sort of prog classics in a lot of ways. So there aren't any epics on it, really. But anyway, Wind and Wuthering, I'm going to put as a B. It's an album that I wish I liked more than I do. And it has, like What Gorilla and Blood on the Rooftops and 11th Earl of Mar, which is 11th Earl of Mar always felt like it belonged on Trick of the Tail, but it's their most kind of dreamy, almost soft. Well, they were going into sort of the soft rock area at some point. But I don't know, that it's like Mew. Some of Mew's music really reminds me of it, which is weird because I love Mew, but sometimes I feel like with that album it never won me over as much, even though it has Steve Hackett's last album with Steve Hackett. So, and then there were three. Well, I actually, now thinking about it, might put ahead of, if I can actually do that like this. I don't know if that lets you do this on Tiermaker. I guess not. Of Wind and Weather, and just by hair, even though there's no Steve Hackett, of course, Mike Rutherford takes over the guitar duties. But it has, is it Your Own Special Way? But of course it has Undertow and Follow You, Follow Me, amongst some others. I mean, a lot of the songs were shorter, but there were more pop. They're starting to do more pop songs, and I actually liked that period of the pop songs, for whatever it's worth. Duke is an A tier. I've always loved Duke. It's always been my favorite Phil Collins era album, especially the ending of Duke Travels, Duke's End. The drum work is it's the best drum work I've ever heard Phil do, actually. It's just so epic. And the whole suite is great. Of course, it has Misunderstanding and Turn It On Again and a few other more notable favorites. But it's a prog album disguised. It's a prog album disguised as a pop album in some ways. But anyway, Abacab, I would give that a C tier. I mean, I've never fully been won over by it. It's kind of the bastard or the red herring of the 80s Genesis. I mean, I don't mind it, but it's just sort of been not the most memorable album. The title track and Dodo Lurker, Who Done It, Keep It Dark. Some people don't like Dodo Lurker. That's like one of their least favorite Genesis songs. But anyway, I mean, it pales in comparison to Duke to me in a lot of ways, unfortunately. So the Mama album, the Shapes album, the self-titled album, I give it a B. It had more pop songs, Mama, that song, and songs like That's All, which is a radio staple. I felt like the production was better, and just some of the songwriting was more cohesive on that record. And I'd say the same thing about Invisible Touch, but I don't think it's better enough better to say it belongs in the A tier. But they did kind of it got them all the exposure, their peak of popularity. Of course, the title track and Domino, Invisible. The title track, as I just said, Land in Confusion, Tonight, which I think the full version is like almost 10 minutes or something. But of course, they usually play the radio edit. But it's as much as people that hate the 80s Genesis that love the 70s or the big Gabriel stuff look down upon this, including Kevin Gilbert a little bit when he did the giraffe thing. Did the lamb thing with the reformed giraffe. I still think the songs are well enough written, and it's not a go-to, but I still can appreciate it. A little bit like Trick of the Tail in some ways. So We Can't Dance, I guess I'd put it in C tier, but it's borderline. It's got Fading Lights is a great track. Drive the Last Spike In or whatever it's called. That's another one. No Son of Mine, Jesus He Loves Me, and the track that wasn't the title track, but I Can't Dance, which got a lot of radio play. I'll always never forget about this album. It's the last album with Phil, of course, and I didn't like it as much initially, but I grew to like it more, especially hearing like the Genesis podcast talk about it, and got me a little more versed on it and appreciate it a little more. So the last album I'd put as a C also. Of course, this one has the stigma of, could have Kevin Gilbert been involved? Could have he been the lead singer, or at least produced it, or maybe sang on? But it's with Ray Wilson, of course. It has a song like Dividing Line and Congo and a couple other notable tracks. It sounds a fair amount like a Spock's Beard album. Ray Wilson is a decent singer. I don't know. It's like they reinvented their sound. Like that album. It's like that album and From Genesis to Revelation sound very much like different bands. I mean, they could have just changed the name. I suppose you could say the same about The Lamb, but The Lamb was just Genesis, the band, reinventing their sound in a way for a big concept. So, I mean, I have it on CD. I remember buying it like in whenever that was, 97, 98, even though I was still not really fully a fan. I was trying to get in. Mike Portnoy talked about Tales from Topographic Oceans and the Lamb Lies on Broadway, two of the starting places that were like the worst starting places for a fan. But you know, I remember when that came out, it was, and then of course they did a tour, and then the tour of the U.S. got canceled. So, but anyway, this is my list of tiers for Genesis albums. What does yours look like? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and we'll see you next time.